You're just a servant. Shut up and do your job." Julian Croft's cold growl cut through the air, aimed directly at the woman who was silently pouring tea, an undisguised contempt for someone he deemed unworthy of his attention. But it was that invisible servant, Elena Vance, who was about to shake the entire conference room on the 52nd floor of Thorne Tower in New York, where the air was so thick it felt like it could be cut. Beneath the cold ceiling lights, Marcus Thorne, the owner of a technology empire on the verge of collapse, felt a cold sweat on the back of his neck, despite his expensive Armani suit and the air conditioning running at optimal levels. Across from him was a board of investors with cold, skeptical faces, and beside them, the shark Julian Croft smirked, ready to tear Thorne Innovations apart. The air in the conference room on the 52nd floor of Thorne Tower in New York was so thick it could be cut. Marcus Thorne, a man with neatly trimmed gray hair and an expensive Armani suit, felt a cold sweat trickle down the back of his neck, despite the air conditioning running at full blast. He stood before a panel of potential investors, their cold, skeptical faces staring at him, at graphs of Thorne Innovations' plummeting revenue projected on a large screen. Beside them, perched on a plush leather chair, was Julian Croft, a man in his 50s, with a smug grin on his face. He was the shark waiting to tear Thorne Innovations apart. Julian's offer to buy the company at a bargain price had just come as a slap in the face to Marcus's life's work. "As you can see," Julian said, his voice dripping with false pity, "Thorne Innovations, once a force to be reckoned with, is now a shadow of its former self. The turnaround plan Marcus presented, I honestly don't see any potential." He shrugged. A dramatic gesture. Perhaps it's time for Marcus to accept reality and let more competent people sort this mess out. Marcus clenched his fists, trying to stay calm. He had just poured his heart and soul into an hour-long presentation, but the investors' eyes were still fixed on him. His hope was fading. In the corner, near the coffee and mineral water cart, Elena Vance watched silently. At 43, with her dark brown hair tied back in a bun and a simple gray maid's uniform, she was almost invisible in this powerful room. Marcus glanced at her only as she moved to refill his glass, a slight frown when a few drops accidentally spilled onto the saucer. He was too focused on the nightmare before him to pay attention to the maid who had worked for him for the past 6 months, the one he knew only as an efficient ghost, keeping his penthouse clean and tidy. Julian continued to dig into Marcus's pain. "The tech market has no room for weakness. Marcus, you had your day, but that's over." Marcus felt his chest tighten. He was about to lose everything: his father's company, his family legacy, and his own pride. He looked at the expressionless faces before him, and a cold feeling of despair began to take over. Just as Marcus was about to give up, ready to accept his bitter fate, a voice suddenly rang out, calm but clear, breaking the heavy silence. "Excuse me, ladies and gentlemen," said the voice from the corner of the room where Elena Vance stood, "but I think Mr. Croft's analysis is seriously flawed and subjective." Every eye in the room turned to her. Marcus froze, turning to look at his maid as if she had grown a second head. He was about to shout at her to be quiet, that this was not her place. The investors exchanged surprised looks, some even smirking. Julian Croft frowned, his face showing his displeasure as his attention was diverted by someone he didn't even notice. Elena, unfazed by the scrutiny, stepped out of the dark corner. She stood up straight, her hazel eyes looking straight at Julian, then towards the investors. "Mr. Thorne," she said, her voice respectful but not at all intimidating, "please allow me a moment. I believe I can point out some solutions and potential that we may have overlooked in Thorne Innovations' plans." Marcus looked at Elena, a woman he knew only from the quiet work she did. The sudden confidence in her voice and eyes made him, in his utter despair, feel a strange curiosity. He had nothing to lose. Maybe a little madness was okay now. You say it?" Marcus stammered, a decision he would never regret. Elena took a deep breath, feeling the waiting silence in the room. She had no polished slides, no numbers prepared on paper. All she had was her intellect, her experience, and a simmering resentment for people like Julian Croft. "Ladies and gentlemen," she began, her voice now completely transformed, no longer the timidity of a maid, but the confidence of an expert. Mr. Croft pointed out the decline in sales of our flagship Z series. That is true. However, he either ignored or failed to notice that our R&D expenditure on the new X-Gen line, which he considered excessive and wasteful, was in fact a strategic investment. Elena stepped closer to the projection screen, where Julian's charts were still visible. If we carefully analyze the data of the niche market that X-Gen is targeting, the smart personal medical device market, we see a growth potential of at least 300% over the next 2 years, with an estimated market size of $750 million. The expected profit margin for X-Gen is 42%, much higher than the current Z series. Cutting R&D now, as Mr. Croft proposed in his acquisition plan, would mean strangling the golden goose that was about to lay eggs. She spoke clearly. The numbers and jargon like customer acquisition cost, customer lifetime value, SWOT analysis pouring out with astonishing precision and logic. She pointed to Julian's slides, exposing the holes and false assumptions. Furthermore, Elena continued, her eyes piercing Julian, Mr. Croft offered to buy Thorne Innovations for only 60% of its book value, an absurd price considering the intellectual property and talented engineering team we possess. That is not a friendly offer. Ladies and gentlemen, it is an act of taking advantage of a difficult situation to seize assets. The surprise on the investors' faces gradually turned to interest, then slowly to admiration. They began to lean forward, listening to Elena's every word. Mr. Harrison, the lead investor, a notoriously difficult man, began to ask questions. "Miss Vance, is that it?" Mr. Harrison asked, his voice losing some of its skepticism. "You're talking about the personal medical device market? What experience does Thorne Innovations have in that area?" Elena smiled slightly. "Mr. Harrison, that's a very valid question. Our R&D team, led by Dr. Albright, has been doing groundbreaking research on biosensor technology since 3 years ago, when we developed a spin-off for the Z series. The X-Gen project is the continuation and upgrade of that research, with a more user-friendly interface and integrated AI to analyze health data. We already have 2 provisional patents filed." Marcus went from stunned to utterly stunned. This information, some of which he had only known vaguely, was now presented by Elena in a coherent and convincing manner. A glimmer of hope, which had seemed extinguished, suddenly flared strongly in his heart. He looked at his maid as if she were a complete stranger. This was not the quiet, taciturn Elena he had known. This was a strategist, a talented orator. Julian Croft, on the other hand, went from annoyance to obvious anger. He tried to interrupt Elena several times. "Ladies and gentlemen, these are just the empty words of a layman." But Elena didn't give him the chance. "Mr. Croft, the numbers I gave were based on independent market research reports from Gartner and Forrester. If you want, I can provide the links right now," she replied, her voice still polite but firm. Ultimately, Elena proposed a specific restructuring strategy focus all efforts on perfecting and launching the X-Gen line within 6 months, cut operating costs in unprofitable areas, seek strategic partners in the healthcare industry to distribute the product, and most importantly, reposition the Thorne Innovations brand from a consumer technology company to a pioneering health technology company. "We don't need to sell ourselves cheap. Ladies and gentlemen," Elena concluded, her voice filled with determination. "We need a chance to prove our true worth." The atmosphere in the conference room had completely changed. Despair had given way to cautious optimism, and it was all thanks to a woman whom, not even Marcus, had noticed a few hours earlier. The meeting ended nearly an hour later. The investors, after a brief private discussion, decided to postpone making a final decision. Instead, they asked Thorne Innovations to provide a more detailed plan based on Elena's proposals within 2 weeks. It was a positive sign, a lifeline Marcus had not dreamed of just hours before. Julian Croft left with a sullen expression, not forgetting to shoot Elena a look of anger and confusion. When the conference room door closed, it was just Marcus and Elena. Marcus remained motionless in his chair, trying to digest what had just happened. He looked at Elena, who was clearing away the cups with her usual calm demeanor, as if she had just made coffee and not saved a fortune. "Elena," Marcus said, his voice hoarse. Who are you?" Elena set down the tray and turned to face him. She was still wearing the same uniform, still had her hair pulled back into a bun, but her eyes were no longer resigned. "I am Elena Vance, your maid, Mr. Thorne," she said, but something in her voice and her eyes told Marcus that this was only a small part of the truth. "No," Marcus shook his head. "My maid can't possibly know about P&L analysis, about market penetration strategy, or about my company's patents." "Who are you?" "Elena, really?" Marcus stood up, walked over to the minibar, and poured himself a scotch. He poured Elena a glass of water. "Please sit," he said, the tension in his voice gone, replaced by curiosity and, perhaps, a little gratitude. Elena hesitated for a moment, then sat down in the chair opposite Marcus. Silence filled the room for a moment, broken only by the sound of ice hitting Marcus's glass. 7 years ago, Elena began, her voice low, carrying a distant sadness. "I was the founder and CEO of Biovance Solutions, a biotech startup. We specialized in AI-based early disease diagnosis solutions." Marcus frowned. The name Biovance Solutions sounded familiar. He remembered reading somewhere about a promising company that had suddenly disappeared from the market. Elena continued, her voice even, but each word felt like a knife stabbing at her memory. "We've developed a breakthrough technology that has the potential to revolutionize medicine. It's looking promising. I have a business partner, someone I trust completely." She paused, taking a deep breath. "His name is Julian Croft." Marcus almost dropped his glass. Julian Croft. His rival, the one who had just tried to swallow his company, was the one who had... Julian was the CFO of Biovance. Elena continued, her eyes looking far away. "He took advantage of my trust, falsified documents, embezzled funds, and step by step took over the entire company, including core patents. He orchestrated a scandal, pushed me out of business, and completely ruined my reputation in the industry. No one wants to cooperate with someone labeled as a fraud or bankrupt." The pieces began to fit together in Marcus's mind. He remembered the venomous words Julian had used against Elena in the conference room. It was not just the contempt of a superior, but also the glee of a perpetrator seeing his former victim in such a lowly state. "I lost everything," Elena said, her voice trembling slightly but without tears. "Family and friends turned their backs on me. Debt piled up. I had to do everything from waitressing to cleaning to get by, to keep myself from falling apart. I chose to be a maid because of the privacy of the job. It gave me time to think, to find a way to get back up, even if it was just in silence." Marcus listened, his emotions a jumbled shock, amazement, and a surge of shame as he recalled the times he had been impatient, even angry, with Elena over trivial matters. He had a diamond in the rough in his own home and didn't even know it. "Why are you helping me?" Marcus asked, his voice sincere. "After everything Julian did to you, you can gloat over my failure." Elena looked Marcus straight in the eye. "Because I see real potential in Thorne Innovations, the dedicated people I've had the chance to observe over the past 6 months, and I hate the way Julian Croft uses people to achieve his goals. He doesn't deserve anything. And," she hesitated, "I see in you, Mr. Thorne, a good man who, even when times are tough and stressful, still maintains a basic decency. You're different from Julian." Elena's words touched a deep place inside Marcus. For the first time in years, he felt a real connection with another person. Marcus put his glass down on the table. He stood up and paced the room, his mind reeling with new information. Elena Vance, the quiet maid, was actually a brilliant businesswoman, the victim of a brutal betrayal, and she had just saved him from certain defeat. "Elena," he stopped in front of her. I don't know what to say. I treated you badly. I'm sorry." Elena shook her head slightly. You don't have to apologize. Mr. Thorne. You didn't know. But I know now, Marcus said, his voice firm. And I know Thorne Innovations needs you. No, I need you. I need your insight, your experience, and your courage. He looked Elena straight in the eye. I want to offer you a position as Senior Strategic Advisor to Thorne Innovations. Help me turn this company around. Help me defeat Julian Croft. Elena looked at Marcus, a little surprised in her eyes. This offer was beyond what she expected. The past wounds were still there, like smoldering scars. Could she trust again? Would she have the strength to confront Julian, the one who had ruined her life? But then she saw an opportunity, a chance to regain what she had lost. Not money, but honor, recognition, a chance to prove her worth. And more importantly, a chance to make Julian pay. I agree, Elena said, her voice firm. But on one condition. I need complete authority to execute the strategy I propose. And you must trust me completely, even when things seem crazy. Marcus didn't hesitate for a second. You have it. From this moment on, you're not just my advisor. You're my partner. He held out his hand. Elena looked at Marcus's hand, then looked up into his eyes. She saw sincerity and determination in them. She placed her hand in his. It wasn't a firm handshake, but enough to seal an unlikely alliance. An alliance that could change both of their fates. The next day, Elena Vance walked into Thorne Innovations headquarters, not in her gray maid's uniform, but in a smart navy business suit. Her brown hair was still tied back, but her lightly made-up face exuded confidence and professionalism. Her arrival in the new role caused quite a stir. Employees, accustomed to seeing Elena quietly cleaning Marcus's office, were now stunned to see her sitting next to their boss in important meetings, delivering sharp instructions and analysis. At first, there were whispers, skeptical looks. What does that maid know about business? She must have some kind of shady relationship with the boss. But Elena didn't let those words affect her. She threw herself into her work with incredible focus and efficiency. She reviewed all the books and procedures, met with every department head, listened and asked questions. Gradually, the employees' skepticism turned to respect, then admiration as they witnessed her true talent, deep understanding of the market, and ability to solve problems. Marcus and Elena work as a team. They stay late into the night at the office, fiercely debating strategies, crunching numbers, planning every move. Marcus, who is used to making all the decisions himself, learns to listen to and trust Elena's intuition. He discovers a completely different Elena, a smart, determined woman, but also with a subtle sense of humor and a warm heart beneath her serious exterior. Elena, for her part, saw a different Marcus. Not the difficult, irritable boss she had known, but a dedicated leader, passionate about his work, and carrying a vulnerability that was not easy to share. She saw his loneliness in his large penthouse, the stress of having to carry the burden of a company on his shoulders. Subtle, romantic moments began to form between them. Quiet, but noticeable. There were late dinners at the office, just sandwiches and coffee, but filled with ideas and laughter. There was when Marcus accidentally touched Elena's hand when they both reached for a document, and a slight electric current ran through them. There was when Elena brought Marcus a cup of ginger tea when she saw him coughing from overwork, and he looked at her with a look of deep gratitude. Marcus began to see Elena not only as an invaluable business partner, but as a fascinating, powerful, and alluring woman. Someone who brought new life not only to Thorne Innovations, but to his own life. Julian Croft was not one to take defeat lightly. The fact that investors were postponing their decisions and showing interest in Elena's plans infuriated him. He could not understand how a lowly servant could ruin his perfect plan. And when he learned that Elena Vance was the woman he had ruined 7 years ago, Julian's anger doubled, along with a vague fear. He decided to act. Unable to confront Elena directly and openly on a professional level, Julian chose a dirty, underhanded approach. He had his cronies start spreading rumors about Elena's past, Anonymous articles and malicious comments on financial forums began to appear, digging up the Biovance solution scandal, painting Elena as a fraud, incompetent, and the one who bankrupted her old company. Julian's goal was clear: to discredit Elena, make investors and Thorne Innovations' internal staff lose confidence in her, and thereby sabotage the company's rescue plan. Not only that, Julian also tried to bribe several key personnel in the R&D and finance departments of Thorne Innovations, promising lucrative positions if they provided inside information about the X-Gen project and the company's financial situation. He wanted to know every move of Marcus and Elena. Rumors spread like a virus. Elena, though trying to stay calm, couldn't help but feel hurt as the past was once again dug up and distorted. The pressure was on her. Some members of Thorne Innovations' board of directors began to express concern, questioning Marcus's decision to trust someone with a dubious background. Marcus noticed the change in everyone's demeanor and Elena's tension. He knew this was Julian's doing. Instead of flinching or doubting, Marcus's anger flared. He couldn't let Julian continue to hurt Elena, the woman who had bravely stood up to help him. "I'll take care of this," Marcus told Elena one morning, finding her reading mean comments online with a grim expression. The next day, Marcus held an impromptu press conference at Thorne Innovations headquarters. In front of a crowd of reporters from major financial newspapers, Marcus, with Elena standing by his side, gave a powerful speech. "Ladies and gentlemen," Marcus began, his voice firm. "In recent days, there have been malicious rumors directed at Ms. Elena Vance, our senior strategic advisor. I am here to confirm that Thorne Innovations has full confidence in Ms. Vance's talent, integrity, and vision. She is an invaluable asset who has brought a groundbreaking plan to our company." Marcus continued, not hesitating to call out Julian Croft. "These smears are nothing more than dirty competitive tactics by weak people who are afraid of the truth and do not dare to confront it fairly. Specifically, Mr. Julian Croft, who is probably very scared that his plan to acquire Thorne Innovations did not work out as expected." He turned to look at Elena, a look full of trust and respect. As for Ms. Vance's past at Biovance Solutions, it is a story of betrayal and deception, of which she was the victim, not the perpetrator. We have every piece of evidence to prove it, and we are ready to confront anyone who wants to learn the truth. Marcus's public and decisive actions acted as a solid shield to protect Elena. She looked at him, her heart filled with gratitude. For the first time in 7 years, someone had stood up for her so strongly. The trust between them had not only been strengthened, but had become deeper than ever. The press conference had caused a huge stir, humiliating Julian Croft and making the rumor mongers retreat. The battle was still going on, but now Elena was no longer alone. After the press conference, the pressure from the rumors subsided, but work at Thorne Innovations remained intense. Marcus and Elena continued to hone in on meetings, analyze data, and adjust strategies. But amid the chaos, their relationship took unexpected steps forward. The late nights were no longer about work. They began to share more about their personal lives. Marcus told Elena about his late wife, who had died of cancer 5 years earlier, leaving him with an irreplaceable void. He spoke of the constant loneliness of his luxurious but cold penthouse, of the pressure to maintain the family legacy. Elena, sensing Marcus's sincerity, opened up. She told him about her unfulfilled dreams for Biovance, the pain of being betrayed by those closest to her, and the years she struggled to survive, trying to keep her faith in herself. She talked about her mother, the only person who had always believed in and supported her, even though she died before she founded Biovance. Empathy and understanding are like an invisible thread that draws them closer together. They find in each other not only an ally at work, but also a friend, a confidant with whom they can share their most intimate secrets. One Friday evening, after they had just finished an important report for the board, Marcus suggested, "No more sandwiches tonight. Elena, let me buy you a nice dinner. We deserve a little break." Elena was surprised, but she smiled and agreed. Marcus took her to a small, cozy Italian restaurant in Greenwich Village, a far cry from the fancy, swanky restaurants he usually frequented. The atmosphere was cozy, with flickering candles, soft music, and the scent of garlic and oregano. They talked endlessly about everything from their favorite books, to the movies they had seen, to their dreams for the future. Marcus discovered that Elena had a charming sense of humor, and that her smile, when it was on, could light up the room. Elena found that Marcus, when he was no longer wearing the facade of a serious businessman, was a very warm, sophisticated, and somewhat romantic man. The feelings between them grew with each conversation, each look, each caring gesture. It was no longer a simple admiration for talent, but had become a deeper attraction. A week after that dinner, they received their first piece of good news, a major investment fund. After carefully reviewing Elena's plan and impressed by Marcus's determination, agreed to invest a significant amount of capital in Thorn Innovations. It was a major victory, a turning point for the company. That evening, in Marcus's office, after the other employees had all left, it was just the two of them. Joy and relief were evident on both of their faces. "We did it." "Elena," Marcus said, his voice filled with excitement. He stepped forward and suddenly hugged her. Elena was a little surprised by Marcus's action, but she wrapped her arms around him. They held each other like that for a moment, feeling each other's warmth and heartbeat. When they pulled away, Marcus looked deep into Elena's eyes. The soft light from the table lamp fell on her face, highlighting her sparkling hazel eyes. "Elena," Marcus said, his voice soft and a little shaky. "You know, ever since you came along, everything has changed. Not just this company, but my whole life. You brought light and hope and a feeling I thought I had lost." He reached up and gently brushed a lock of hair from her cheek. "I don't just admire your talent, Elena. I think I've fallen in love with you." Elena's heart was pounding. She saw the sincerity and warmth in Marcus's eyes. Her reservations and past hurts seemed to disappear before his warmth. She couldn't deny that Marcus also held a special place in her heart. She said nothing, just tiptoed and placed a kiss on Marcus's lips. A kiss that was initially shy, but quickly became passionate and intense, as if releasing all the pent-up emotions. It marked a new beginning, not only for Thorn Innovations, but also for their love story, a love that bloomed late but was intense and meaningful. Their newfound love has empowered both Marcus and Elena. They are not just lovers, but also strong allies in the fight for Thorn Innovations' future and justice for Elena. The new investment gives the company more resources to launch the X-Gen project, while also allowing them to focus on another front, uncovering the true face of Julian Croft. Elena, with the help of Marcus and a formidable legal team he hired, began quietly gathering evidence related to the Biovance Solutions case 7 years ago. She contacted several former colleagues who had witnessed the incident but had been afraid or bribed by Julian to speak out. Times had changed, and some were now willing to cooperate, providing important emails, documents, and testimony that they had previously withheld. One of them was Susan Holloway, Biovance's former chief accountant. She had retired and moved to Florida. At first, Susan refused to meet with Elena, still haunted by what had happened. But after Elena persistently convinced her, telling her what Julian was doing with Thorn Innovations, Susan's conscience was awakened. She agreed to provide a copy of Biovance's entire financial records that she had secretly kept, including undeniable evidence that Julian had manipulated the books and set up shell companies to drain the company. "I was too scared to speak up." "Elena," Susan said over the phone, her voice filled with regret. "But I can't let him hurt anyone else. This is my chance to make things right." Marcus didn't sit still either. He used his connections to investigate Julian's recent shady activities, discovering that he was trying to manipulate the stock prices of several other small companies for his own gain. 3 months later, at the New York Technology Business Association annual general meeting, a major event that brings together many of the industry's biggest names, Julian Croft confidently took the podium, boasting about his achievements and vision. Little did he know, a storm was about to descend upon him. As Julian finished his speech and received a somewhat awkward round of applause, Marcus Thorn took the stage, followed by Elena Vance. Their unexpected appearance caused a stir in the room. "Sorry to interrupt, Marcus said into the microphone, his voice calm but authoritative. But before we move on, I think there are a few facts that need to be cleared up regarding one of the successful entrepreneurs who just spoke. All eyes turned to Julian, who was starting to look confused. Elena stepped forward. This time, she was no longer the anonymous maid or the upstart counselor. She was a woman who had found her voice again, ready to face her enemy. "Ladies and gentlemen," Elena began, her voice echoing throughout the room. "My name is Elena Vance. 7 years ago, I founded BioVance Solutions. And this man," she pointed a finger at Julian Croft, "stole my company, ruined my reputation with lies and dirty tricks." Elena, with the aid of a large screen behind her, began to present her entire story. This time with full evidence, forged emails with her signature, phantom contracts, shady money transfers to Julian's personal accounts, and even Susan Holloway's taped testimony. Each piece of evidence came crashing down on Julian like a hammer blow. His smug face changed from confusion to paleness to anger and shame. He tried to argue, screaming that it was slander, but no one believed him anymore. The truth was too obvious. Marcus then went on to reveal evidence of Julian's recent market manipulations. The image of a successful businessman and a talented investor that Julian had worked so hard to build up over the years had completely collapsed in the eyes of the public and his business partners. The confrontation ended with Julian Croft being escorted out of the auditorium by security amid scorn and whispers. It was a sweet victory of justice for Elena, and also an affirmation of the power of truth. After that shocking shareholder meeting, things moved quickly. The Securities and Exchange Commission (SEC) launched an investigation into Julian Croft. Armed with the overwhelming evidence provided by Elena and Marcus, along with testimony from other victims, Julian was quickly hit with a series of criminal charges for fraud, market manipulation, and embezzlement. His business partners turned on him, and his company was on the brink of bankruptcy. In the end, Julian Croft received a well-deserved sentence, years in prison, and a hefty fine, ending his criminal career. Meanwhile, Thorne Innovations, under the skillful leadership of Marcus and Elena, made a spectacular comeback. The X-Gen project was successfully launched, received a warm reception from the market and experts, and quickly became a flagship product bringing in huge revenue and profits. The company not only escaped the crisis, but also grew stronger than ever. Becoming a formidable name in the health technology field, Elena Vance not only regained her reputation, but also became widely recognized for her talent and resilience. She became an icon for women who dare to stand up for what is right. Marcus offered her the position of CEO of Thorne Innovations, but Elena, after careful consideration, decided to pursue her own dreams. With Marcus's financial and moral support, she refounded BioVance Solutions, this time with a stronger foundation and a trusted partner. Their two companies became strategic partners, working together to develop innovative technological solutions for the future. 6 months after Julian Croft's conviction, Marcus and Elena's lives took a turn for the better, brighter and more peaceful. Their love, tested by storms, grew stronger and deeper. They went public with their relationship, receiving the blessing of friends, colleagues, and even those who had doubted them. Marcus's penthouse is no longer cold and lonely. It is now filled with laughter, cozy dinners prepared by Elena, though she still teases Marcus that his cooking skills need a lot of improvement, and plans for the future. One romantic autumn evening in New York, when the yellow leaves were falling all over the balcony, Marcus prepared a surprise for Elena. He decorated the balcony with candles and roses, and cooked dinner himself. When Elena returned from the new BioVance office, she was stunned by the beautiful view. Marcus, dressed in a smart suit, smiled and took her hand. "Elena Vance," he said, his voice sincere and emotional. "You came into my life like a strange wind, turned everything upside down, and then set everything right back together. You showed me what it meant to believe, what it meant to hope, and what it meant to love again. I can't imagine my life without you." Marcus knelt down on one knee and pulled out a small velvet box from his pocket. He opened it, revealing a sparkling diamond ring. "Elena Vance, my extraordinary woman, will you be my partner for life? In business and in life, will you be my wife?" Tears of happiness rolled down Elena's cheeks. She nodded, speechless, only able to hug Marcus. "I do, yes, I do, Marcus." They shared a passionate kiss under the starry New York sky, marking a happy ending to a challenging story. Together, they overcame adversity, sought justice, and found true love in the most unexpected place. The future ahead is bright, promising new successes in their careers and a fulfilling, lasting happiness. The audience, especially those who have passed the middle of their lives, felt their hearts warmed, believing that it is never too late to start over, to love, and to find happiness. Thank you for taking the time to listen to this story. If you love this story, don't forget to click like to support the channel. Share this story with family and friends, and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any stories.